We'll get there, people. I'm an old soul, so technology is not always easy.
This is your first
one. I'm an old soul, and Dave is just old. So that's. I think you're an old soul too. Okay, good. Oh, we're so excited for today. We're here live with the Enlightrepreneurs podcast, and we have Elise Dorsett joining us here, a relationship and business consultant. Does amazing work specializing working with men to get more trust and more openness in their business and in their relationships. It's just beautiful. Elise, we're so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I have just experienced so many blessings knowing you two and having worked with you two throughout this entire process. You have been so supportive, and I just see how much you're living your mission. You're really amplifying people's impact, and I felt amplified and uplifted by you throughout this whole process.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You've shown a level of I'd say flexibility and openness in terms of eating your own cooking through this whole process. As you know, this was a live event, which we put a lot of work, a lot of excitement.
It was supposed to be our first one.
Our first one. We had all kinds of, like I say, big cigars and motor cars for the event, and Elise flying in from Switzerland. And then, of course, we've adjusted as the world has. And so it's kind of a good news, bad news, because we missed the opportunity to see so many of you who had signed up and would be here and be able to do the event. At the same time, it's giving us a reach and an opportunity to touch a lot of people and to collaborate with a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't have been able just to show up.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, kudos for you, Elise. When I saw the travel ban come in when I was in Utah, and on Friday, I thought, oh, but anyway, you're here, and thanks for making it.
Yeah, we've all had to make some tough decisions, and I love that we can start using technology even more. And I found living abroad that it takes something from me, it takes something extra from me to stay connected to my friends and family. And this is an opportunity to just practice that, to practice staying connected, to practice supporting each other, to practice going the extra mile and the extra effort to stay connected and keep supporting each other during this time. We have to.
It's huge, and it's so key that we stay mobile and limber in all of our businesses. And I know Dave and I, we've been racking our brains because we work really closely with entrepreneurs in a lot of different industries, and they're like, everybody's getting hit right now. So we've been really actively trying to create resources, how to corona-proof your business and stay adaptable and make sure that people are getting through this and thriving, or even using this as an opportunity to grow their business even in some of the hard times. So for all of our people around, stay tuned for some of those resources as well.
Absolutely.
And it's a great segue into you, Elise, because what we're finding, because we're eating our own cooking. I mean, in terms of just having a coffee shop, my businesses are this whole project, and we're having to stay flexible. We're having to stay open. We're having to let go of old ideas, and this so well plays into. And Justin will talk a little bit more about right now. We'll kind of segue into a more formal introduction in terms of who you are and what you do, but just the need to be able to just be open and be receptive, because none of us know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's disorienting for all of us. And you having experience and expertise and passion around mentoring and shepherding people through the process of doing that in relationships in the business. So in addition to this being, a podcast, it's also kind of a launching of this whole process of how do we respond as entrepreneurs in this moment.
Absolutely. That, for me, that brings up the concept of leadership. I study leadership all the time, and I'm constantly wanting to get the most out of myself as a leader and the most out of my clients as leaders. And one of the things that I've been repeating to myself is leaders see possibility. Leaders always see possibility. Yeah. And this is a time where we all get to come to terms with the realities and not to push it aside, what we're feeling and what we're going through, but also to be committed to seeing possibilities here.
Right. Oh, that's so key. So the event that we had planned for today was called Wholehearted, right? So the essential path to real success in your business and in your life. You're living this way. You're living this wholehearted life, and you're helping so many people become more of that, become more of who they are, and open up more of who they are. Tell us about your journey. How did you end up at this work? How did you end up here, and why is this so important to you?
Oh, thank you for the question. I see my life as a series of stepping stones that when I look back, I had a calling to do something, and then I realized afterward why it made sense and how it led me to the next step. And I'll just start with having the calling to go to Argentina after I graduated college, because that was just something that didn't make any sense. But for me, it was the wholehearted thing to do, because it was really me listening to my heart. I felt like I needed to get out of my bubble, get out of my box, do something totally crazy after college and have that experience. And I went there and ended up learning tango. Long story short, I then
That's a good place to learn tango.
Yes.
That's great.
It was the perfect place to learn tango. And then I went backpacking and found a calling to do my yoga teacher training in Peru, and completed that. Came home, was a complete hippie. You can ask my parents around about that phase of my life. And then I ended up getting a job in Raleigh and establishing myself in Raleigh and living here and loving it. And one day went out and danced tango and ended up meeting my husband, who was there. He had come from Italy, and the first thing he did was find the tango community here. And so that's one stepping stone, and meeting him was really the catalyst for me becoming a coach for men. And watching him go through his journey has been so inspiring for me, inspiring to watch him, also inspiring to experience his change as he has worked with coaches and studied leadership, to experience how different he is with me and how different our conversations are, because both of us have been.
But tell me about that transformation. What was that like? What were some of these big breakthrough moments that were so inspiring for you?
Okay, I've been thinking, as I've been preparing for this, I've been thinking about and experiencing wholehearted and vulnerable moments leading up to this, as you both know.
Yeah.
And I will share this, and it is vulnerable to share. We were having a conversation about life and about each of our different tendencies to how we approach things. I tend to have an approach of, I want to feel good. I think it's good to feel good, and I think it's good to help others to feel good. But I'm learning that we also have to experience our pain fully in order to feel good. And so we were talking
Have you ever
about
done the Enneagram?
Yes.
Okay, I'm curious. What are you on the Enneagram?
I think is that the one where it's numbered?
1 through 9. Yeah.
I'm a 6.
Okay, 6 would. Okay, maybe. Anyway, well, it's just a great way to direct, because I think I have an idea based on what you're saying. Probably not 6, but go ahead. Continue. Okay. Yeah.
So he has a little bit different perspective on this, and this is a deep conversation, because it was getting into deep life beliefs for both of us, and we were disagreeing. And one of the things that he said to me was so painful. He said, but it just brought up both of our patterns. So he said, I really want to hurt you so that you can feel that you're wrong about this, about wanting to feel good. And I said, I want to close this conversation right now, because this is not making me feel good, and go away from you. And the fact that we were able to feel what we were feeling,
right,
and just say it out loud to each other, and for me not to run away and slam the door, which is what I really wanted to do, and for him not to actually say words to put me down and hurt me, even though that's what he wanted to do. It's not rational, it's just human stuff, but we could just have that conversation honestly, and then we could say, okay, this is my avoidance racket coming up and showing itself, and he could say, okay, this is my being right racket coming up, and we could both see that and say, okay, what are we committed to creating here?
Wow.
Instead of actually acting on it. And that's the power of this work.
Huge.
And it has transformed our relationship.
And one of the things that I think is so interesting is because when people think about vulnerability, they expect a story where you said I love you and he said I love you and he said I love you back, and you just got deeper and deeper and deeper. Right. But this was just the fact that both of you were just, I don't know what it was. I don't know if we call it vulnerable, but just receptive. Neither one of you shut down.
Right.
You were able to hold your positions, be authentic in your experience. You didn't try to change the experience of what you were having. You both felt what you felt. But the fact that you were able to to still remain receptive while you were standing in that is just, it's such a beautiful lesson in terms of not knowing what, I mean, we want to be open in ways that we think we know what openness looks like, which really means we're being closed to being open.
But I do think you're onto something. You said vulnerability and authenticity in the same sentence, that you were like authentically feeling your feelings and feeling them out loud. I think that is vulnerability, especially when you're feeling ugly or you're seeing some of your not so beautiful parts. Vulnerability of, saying I love you when you feel it, that's one thing. But saying, hey, here's me, actually me, where I am right now, how I'm checking in right now. Will you still accept me and love me here? I think that's big. That's huge. What do you think?
That's exactly right. The word that comes to me right now is engaged. Staying engaged in what it is you're feeling instead of running away from it. And I'm reading this. I have these two books here these have been two of my inspirations. So Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, obviously she's
rock star.
And the other one that's been so interesting for me is Radical Honesty by Brad Blanton. And it's all about, as you can imagine, being radically honest in all situations. And what he writes is that our minds need to rationalize our feelings. So our feelings are not always rational. I can be angry this is something that comes up for me, another vulnerable share. If I see a beautiful woman, sometimes I resent her just for looking the way she does. Maybe she's more beautiful than me. That is irrational. It doesn't make any sense, but it can be a feeling that I have. And what we think is that in order to express our emotions, in order to feel them, they have to be justified. So it prevents us, because our minds get involved. So it prevents us from just allowing ourselves to feel what we feel, accepting it, and then choosing what to do with it. It's not always appropriate to share completely everything you're feeling in every single moment, but you can know yourself and you can honor yourself.
And there's something I want to ask for you to make a distinction, how you look at it, because there's one thing about being authentic with your emotions, and there's another thing is to say it inelegantly, not throwing up on people, right? So there's a way that you can feel what you feel and still hold a higher standard.
Okay. Are you talking about hanging up the phone on shame or hanging
or whatever? You can take, go wherever you want. This isn't a lead. This isn't a leading question. It's just because somehow you and Marco, even though you were both, locked in a place that wasn't necessarily, open, you still held a certain standard. Right? You still rose to a certain level, even though your emotional experience might not have been the highest and best that you would have wanted to have at that moment.
So to get in there, maybe, so you're saying to feel the feelings, but still choose your actions accordingly, and doing both in the same breath.
Right. And not using vulnerability as an excuse to just do whatever the heck you want.
To be a bad human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
We just teed it up for you. Swing away.
Yeah, that comes down to your vision for yourself as a person, your vision for your relationship. And this is what we work on. I work on all the time with my clients. What's your vision?
Yeah.
And when you're clear about that, when you're clear about your vision of who you want to be and the kind of life you want to live and the relationship you want to have, you can feel what you feel, and then you make a choice based on your vision. So that was a moment for Marco and me to be able to come together and say, okay, this is authentically how we're both feeling. We trust each other enough. We've built the trust with each other enough that we can share that so deeply and so honestly with each other. Now, where do we go from here? What's our vision?
I love that.
And we co-create it and we work our way to it. Maybe our vision in that moment is to part and say, okay, we need a little time separate. We need to go outside. Or maybe our vision is, let's stay engaged in this until we work it through.
Right. But you're always being called to a higher vision by the relationship itself. I think that's beautiful. So how do you see this showing up now in business owners? A lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs or business owners. What does it actually look like for them to get vulnerable with their teams, for them to get authentic in their work and aligned to their work? How do you see this engaging there for entrepreneurs?
So important. I was talking to a lot of different entrepreneurs, business owners, venture capitalists, leaders as in preparation for this conversation, asking them about wholeheartedness and vulnerability. And I heard a few different stories that are really key. So I'll tell the first one. So I was talking to someone who said, you know, one of my managers, he's a really good manager. He's a really good guy, but he acts like he always has the answer. He acts like when he gives, he has a shield. Everyone can feel it. He has this armor where he is putting on a mask at work. He's acting like he's strong. He knows everything. Like he kind of orders people around, and he wasn't getting good results on the team. He had a lot of turnover on the team. People weren't responding well. People didn't like him, and he wasn't making sales, and his team wasn't making sales. And this person who I was talking to said that he was able to give him feedback on how he was, and said, you know, it would be nice if you could just open up a little bit more, if you could just share how you're really feeling. If you could be a little more receptive to other people's feedback. And that he was able to shift a little bit after that feedback. And this next year, he has had so much better results, gotten more sales, had less turnover on the team, and just from a small shift. And that came partly because he was new and he felt uncomfortable in his environment. He wanted to show that he could do it. He wanted to show that he was strong. But I think that's really common in businesses. I've felt it, of course, in meetings, and I've worked in corporate environments, I've worked in agency environments, and sometimes you feel like you have to act. You have to act like you know when you don't know, or you have to act like you are more of an expert than you really feel that you are. So there's a line, but people respond when you're true, when you're real.
So let me play off that. Because as you know, I used to be a trial lawyer. Your father's a very successful trial lawyer. And I brought vulnerability for trial lawyers, and they looked at me like I was, I was asking them to disarm, And so, because that's the idea of being in a competitive environment, that to be vulnerable mean that you are unilaterally disarming. So let's talk about the realities of vulnerability. Whatever. Again, I'll just tee it up for you, and just give us your thoughts about the relationship between vulnerability and weakness, and vulnerability and strength, in a world where other people aren't going to be playing by the same rules that you are.
Wow. Yeah, okay, so much coming up for me right now. For me, it's what's coming up is vision once again. So if you define your vision for your life and yourself, it opens you up to having the courage to be more vulnerable in a world where not everyone is playing with those same rules. If that's what you want. So vulnerability it has a connotation of weakness, but it's actually the opposite of weakness. It is opening yourself up to being wounded. So the Latin of vulnerable comes from the word to wound. So if you're opening yourself up to be wounded, to be hurt, to be exposed, it's actually a sign of strength. So that's one thing that's really important. But you will feel it. You will feel uncomfortable. You will feel, I feel vulnerability hangover. That's a thing where you expose yourself and you are criticized, or you expose yourself and you fail, or someone gets angry at you, or these things are painful. And so that's why we're not vulnerable, is because we're avoiding pain. Avoiding pain. But it's also, you can't feel love without feeling vulnerable. You can't feel joy. You can't feel the depth of happiness without being vulnerable. You cannot. It's impossible.
That's powerful.
And if I could just add something, I had the pleasure of meeting your father after we met, and I realized that if you can have heart. So you can still do the tricks of the trade. You can still do what's required. You can still, but there's somehow that, like, I realized your father just brings heart to what he does. And he's still a very successful lawyer. And I'm sure he's still someone that people don't like to see on the other side of the counsel table. I wouldn't, because I know he's very formidable. And at the same time, there's a way that one can bring heart to it, and then just see how does that play out in terms of still being an effective salesperson, a lawyer. You know, there were times when I realized in order to successfully defend a client, I had to armor up a bit. That's what was demanded from my. But anyway, I just think somehow that just bringing that wholeheartedness, that beautiful phrase. I don't know which one of you two came up for this for the podcast, but anyway, just you bring wholeheartedness in, and then you see what does that look like in terms of the realities of the situation that I find myself in business or my profession.
So the story you shared about the manager who opened up, I liked how you were starting to get at some of the symptomatic issues in corporations and companies where people generally feel like they can't show up fully. They can't show up wholeheartedly. It's hard to gain the traction of authenticity and vulnerability, especially you're showing up in a new environment. What about for the leaders of these companies? Again, that's a lot of our listeners are the ones leading the charge and actually creating these environments. How can they create a culture, create an atmosphere where vulnerability or authenticity, people showing up as their whole selves, happens more naturally, so it doesn't take a year of someone being somewhere before they actually start showing up as themselves?
Yes, leaders have to do it first. That's
okay.
the first, that you can't create a culture where that's allowed unless you do it. And what it means is sometimes admitting that you're wrong or that you don't know. It also means maybe talking about some personal aspects of your life, or having a more personal coffee or lunch date with your employees.
Right.
And it leads to a feeling of more unity. It leads to people doing better work. It leads to people opening up to each other. I mean, if someone has a friend at work, they're much more likely to stay and in an office setting. And we're all humans. We're all humans, and we're not robots. And we have to recognize that we also get to, of course, like I said before, vulnerability doesn't mean coming into the office and like crying all day.
Right. Sure.
Or shouting at your office mate if you're angry. You can have a sense of emotional control, power, but what emotional intelligence is recognizing it for yourself, how you feel, and doing what needs to be done about that for yourself, and according to your vision, how you want to show up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we've known each other, what, a month maybe? And, you met me fully when we were connected by LinkedIn, someone made an introduction. And tell me what the difference is in your experience between living from, what's it like living from a place of vulnerability in your own life? Just tell me the difference between what it feels like to be Elise, living from that space, and what as it compared to what it feels like living in whatever the other space might be.
Yeah.
That's a really good question, and something that I am working on every day. And for me, it starts with learning that I learned to be polite, and I'm very good at being polite.
Growing up, that was something for you?
Yes, growing up, I have always been taught to be polite, and I've always wanted people to like me. So that has worked for me really well socially and in my life. And it's a habit of, and I'm very good at it, knowing what I think someone might want to hear from me instead of saying what I actually think.
Okay.
And really being afraid of conflict, really terrified of conflict, and really being afraid to look stupid or weird or say something that might make someone uncomfortable. I'm good at creating harmony and smoothing out situations. And there's nothing wrong with being good at that. Like that's a strength.
Good skills, yeah.
Those are good skills. And I also have to recognize, especially as a coach, that my vision now is not necessarily to be liked, but more to be trusted. And to be trusted, you have to be honest. And sometimes being honest makes people uncomfortable. And especially when I'm going deep with clients, I have to be honest with them. I have to go into whatever the true issue is that's very painful for them, which is, if they didn't have some kind of pain, they wouldn't be working with me. So we have to get to the bottom of what that is. And I have to ask them questions that aren't comfortable for me to ask and uncomfortable for them to answer. And I have to engage with that and stay with that. And that is very vulnerable for both of us. And that means for me, letting go of needing to be liked, letting go of needing to be polite, and recognizing when is the appropriate moment for that, according to my vision, and when is the moment to really just be honest about something and take the consequences for it.
Wow. Here's what I want to know. What was the breakthrough moment for you? Was it a massive thing that I'm done just trying to be polite and people please, and so I'm going to do this big thing just to, jump out of the airplane and hopefully my parachute works? Or was it more these micro risks that you took along the way, or a combination of both? What did that look like for you to break out of that paradigm that was holding you back from showing up fully?
Yes, I don't think I've broken out of it. I'm not.
Or to start, how about that?
I'm just starting. Yeah. And it's been micro. It's been micro for me, recognizing and through the leadership training that I do, that has set up a space for me where people in the group know what I'm working through. They know it's very open, all of our light sides and our dark sides and what the challenges are. And we get group coaching. And so they can recognize. And so if I take a risk and I say something and it offends someone and they say, okay, that was too much, or, that way didn't work, but maybe you could have said it like that. So it's kind of like a workshop experiment environment where I can try things. That's been really supportive for me. Also, my husband is continually pushing me. He's continually, this is one of his strengths. He's continually asking me, did you go there with them? Did you ask them their vision? Did you ask them a difficult question? Or were you just trying to look good? Were you just trying to be liked? Were you just trying to be nice? He's constantly asking me that. So I'm really thinking about it a lot. And then I can take one more step, one more step. As much as I wish that it could be just one day I wake up and I'm completely able to go there, it's been micro.
And I think you, in a way, I see one of the answers to the question I asked about what does it feel like, because you can be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be more than you are. That's so beautiful. You don't have to. I'm the expert. I got it kicked out of this. I got the tail kicked out of this thing, and I'm going to tell you what I know because there. First of all, there's what we pick up, and I'm sure the viewers and listeners pick up. There's a strength in your authenticity. So, independent of whether you claimed credentials or development that you hadn't reached yet, but just this is something the three of us share, and I think we've all bonded with. Is it's just so nice to be able to say, "This is who I am," and that is just freeing. It's such a different way, and we all snap back into. I snap back into trying to be something, and that's just who I am. Justin less of it. Justin can't be anything other than what he is.
Let it go on the minutes. Let the minutes reflect that I do not have really anything figured out.
Anyway, all right, let me just don't let the truth get in the way of a good story here. All right, but anyway, the point is.
Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
No, but I just want to say that I think this is part of what we model, what we experience, what we have is to stand in our strength and to stand in who we are at the same time and find we don't have to toggle back and forth between being strong and being who we are, that they start to come together and then that's just a radically different way to live.
Well, and I think there's something interesting here on the vulnerability side that's a new exploration for me. So there's the vulnerability, okay, here are my blind spots, here are my weaknesses, here's all of me, and showing up that way. There's also a vulnerability for me of actually showing up in my power, which to me is actually very vulnerable to say, no, I'm good at that. I can do that, and I'm capable and competent, and not playing small and not pretending like, like if we're working with people on business coaching, like I can't help
Oh, yeah.
period. And being okay and to show up in my power that way, that's actually really more vulnerable for me.
And then you can radically change someone instantaneously. You know, we're talking about things that take time and, you know, micro steps and stuff, but what we've all experienced on both sides, whether we're being, you know, formal, informal, coach, mentee, is that it doesn't take any time at all. And that's the miracle of vulnerable. Anyway, we should turn this over to you. We get excited about this.
So what I wonder about that for you is there a vulnerability for you in showing up in your powerful spots? You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What does that look like for you? How does that play out?
Whoa. Yes. It's about being enough, knowing that I am enough just the way I am, just with how much I've studied, and to be on the journey. And because I'm absolutely on the journey. And this is something that I get feedback about from my clients about, is like, they say, thank you for sharing that you are also going through difficult times. Because coaching is not me having the answers. It's not. It's me being on the journey, also understanding what's happening and holding someone's hand, or holding a space for them to have their transformation, which, yes, can be fast. But so yes, it's knowing that I have the capacity and the power to do that for someone just as I am. I don't have to do another course. I don't have to read another book. I don't have to do another certification. I will continue to do those things because I know that I want to keep getting better and better. But right now I am enough. And putting myself out there and saying, this is what my work is worth, and being confident about that, and enrolling someone into that is so vulnerable. Oh my gosh.
Sure.
And
it's like you're putting your art out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're claiming it.
Yeah.
And once you claim it, I mean, you're done. You burnt your ships. You know, there's no going back. And that's a very vulnerable place.
And there's the line between. Well, what I've noticed about myself is sometimes I go too far, and I act more confident than I really am. I want to show up confident, but not fake.
Right.
And not confident. You know, you have to just, man, it takes practice.
So I want to circle back to something that it could have been easily missed at the beginning about, I can't remember the word, about saying potential everywhere, or I think possibilities was the word you used.
Leaders, yes.
And one of the things that you and I bonded over on our first call was, we said we can't help but see opportunity everywhere. You know, and sometimes we see opportunities where there's not real opportunities. That's discernment, that's maturity. But one, I have two questions for you. Okay. Question one is, what's the relationship between vulnerability and that capacity, or that talent, or that predilection to see opportunity everywhere? Question one. Question two is, how does that relate to the present time when there is so much disruption that's happening right now worldwide?
Vulnerability and possibility. Well, here's my take on it, because you're right. We both have that in common, where
all three of us do.
There are lots of shiny objects and butterflies. And sometimes the vulnerable, wholehearted thing for me to do is focus on one thing and really take it and go deep with it and give it my all, my whole heart, going all in, and recognizing that I actually have a tendency, and it's easier for me to jump to another shiny object or another butterfly instead of continuing on and finishing to excellence. So, and it's vulnerable because it's painful for me to miss out, to feel like I'm missing out. And it's painful for me to get excited about something and miss out on that feeling of excitement, and to sit myself down and show up once again to something that I said I was going to complete 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think, go ahead. I was going to say that there's something about what keeps us from seeing opportunities is preconceptions about what an opportunity looks like, right? We know opportunity is going to come. It's going to look like this. Right. I never dreamed my perfect partner would be, 37 years younger than me, half Jamaican, the whole set. Who knew? It seems, it's working great. But I mean, in the same way, just with all these, I said I never dreamed the woman of my dreams would have curly red hair. I didn't know such a thing existed, right? So there's something about just just disrupting your ideas. You know, just being open, having the vulnerability to say no. It can look like something I don't know, and having the courage and the trust and the knowing to be able to accept opportunities or have your ears perked to opportunities that don't look like anything that you.
Well, once the corporate opportunity is missed by many because it shows up at your door dressed in overalls and looks like work, you know. So it's like you can easily miss some things that might just be right in front of you, and you just need to do the damn work, as they say.
Yeah, and just also to kind of tie it into the way we turn the jewel, and this is also a piece of our Improving Your Business series. How do you see, you know, you're in the middle because you flew from Zurich. I mean, right. So you're in Europe, you flew in, you know, you're in the midst of, as we all are right now. How do you see vulnerability playing out in terms of entrepreneurs' ability to adapt, anyone's ability to adapt, but especially our audience, entrepreneurs' ability to adapt?
Yeah. So vulnerability, once again, and wholeheartedness in this moment is first recognizing our own the emotional impact of all of this. And knowing we each get to make a choice, and a lot of choices. Who do we hug? Who do we not hug?
Right.
You know, for me, it's very uncomfortable for me not to hug people, to say no.
Right.
It's strange and uncomfortable for me. When and where do we go out? Do we wear gloves and a mask even though we look like freaks?
Right.
Around here? How do we show up for our friends? My friend had to cancel her wedding celebration.
Wow.
So the wedding that I came here for is canceled. So
wow.
how can I show up for her in a way that I can understand her pain?
Right.
I understand what it's like to go through through the planning process of a wedding. I cannot hardly imagine what it was like to be canceled. I need to show up for her and be there for her, use the technology I have to be there for her, even though I can't be there for her in person, while also being committed to seeing possibility. Like I said before, like not being dragged down. I refuse to let my energy get dragged down by this. I will take care of myself. I will take care of the people I love. I will take care of my friends. I will be there for them. And I will also see possibilities for myself, for my business, for my relationship with my husband. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get back or when.
Wow.
You know, so it's just, we're all, whether we like it or not, I think we're all vulnerable right now because it's completely uncertain what's going to happen. We don't know if the whole country is going to get shut down.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I've been having these discussions for a couple of years about, you know, the future of business and where business is heading, just from a standpoint of the whole consciousness of humanity evolving and elevating to these new levels. And there's been this idea of collaboration over competition that I truly believe that business is heading in more and more of a collaborative, not that you don't compete and try to get better, but that it's more of a collaborative and we're all rising together. We're sharing information. Open sourcing is becoming more and more common. All of these trends are shifting, and I believe that's in part of just this rising in human consciousness. So maybe that's the opportunity here, even in this Corona opportunity, is how can we collaborate to stay alive, really, like the collaboration is adaptation. Being vulnerable with each other, to each other. What does that look like to be together in these ways that support each other? Because the individualist stuff can't work, especially now.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like collaboration. We all know it's important. The idea of we should get along, that's kind of a nice to have, and with a pure capitalistic perspective. We like capitalism. It's not nothing wrong. But the idea that I just, you say that, I could just feel, especially in the three of us and everyone else who's participating in this, I can feel the truth of that actually collaboration is an evolutionary adaptive mechanism that's being required in this moment. And it's so interesting. And you're on the, with what you do, you're on the cutting edge of it. Yeah. We're all on the cutting edge of what you do. And if people want to, so how do people engage with you? How do they find you?
And before you get to that, we're going to open up YouTube Live on Dave's computer so that you can actually ask live questions. There's a bit of lag time on the video, so just put your questions in when you're hearing this, and then hopefully we'll have something in there. We're figuring out this technology piece. We should have something in there for you. So yeah, Elise, how do we connect with you and your work?
Sure. I am on all of the social media platforms, LinkedIn at Elise Dorsett, Facebook at Elise Dorsett, and Instagram, Elise_Dorsett.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can connect with me there. And there's more information about what I do, especially on my LinkedIn profile, but you'll also see little snippets of messages through Instagram. And one way to connect is I'm going to be hosting a workshop on Thursday. Should I talk about my workshop?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, this is a great time.
Okay, so this was another opportunity to be really flexible and reach more people. I plan to host a workshop on Thursday live in Raleigh, and we're taking it online. So it's a workshop for couples, actually.
Yeah.
And it's a couple hours. I think it might be an hour and a half online where we'll just come together, and it's to connect with your partner, to rekindle your relationship with your partner. I think the one opportunity that we see here during the times of this crisis is that people are staying home. And there have been a lot of jokes about how many December babies are there going to be. So that's a lovely thing, because I talk to a lot of men, I talk to a lot of couples, and the biggest problem that I hear is I don't have enough time. I feel like time is always scarce for me and my partner. We don't have time to connect, or we feel like roommates by now. The passion is gone. And so what I've created is a workshop that will teach you how to take advantage of the small moments and optimize your time to really feel connected. There are a lot of exercises that you can do in 5 minutes, in 2 minutes. If your devices are turned off and you have the mechanism of an exercise to tune into each other, it can make all the difference, because the relationship is not made of just big moments like the marriage and as you know, it's made of the small things, the small ways that we show up for each other. And so this workshop is meant to be an opportunity to cultivate those exercises and those practices, and also take advantage of time being at home with your loved one.
And they find that by connecting with you on social media platforms, right? You're going to be posting about this. I got to speak specifically to entrepreneurs and business owners, because we invest so much in our businesses and in our communities, and via time and money and all of these things. This sounds like a great way for you to invest. Like, how much are you investing at home and in your relationship, one of your core relationships with your partner?
I want to give a pitch here from my own experience, because as I worked my way through my legal career, there was a few years where I did family law, and about January 15th is when I had the influx of new divorce clients, because people had been together over the holidays, and they're in, so I think just in terms of, just like we're going to corona-proof our businesses, we want to corona-proof our marriages in our relationship. And I think that
when you're stuck together, you actually want to be together.
Exactly.
Like quarantine.
I think this is, it's right now.
With my stuff.
Exactly. What a great opportunity right now to take a little, preventative action and get out ahead, be proactive, and say, okay, we know this is going to be stressful, and as well as an opportunity. We're going to see it from both ends. And
absolutely. And for an entrepreneur, I know how it is when you start your business. You can work 24/7. Like, you can completely lose yourself in your work, because you have to do everything. So it's even more important to have a vision for your relationship, and to be intentional about that, and to set boundaries, and to make the time, to create the time, because it's your partner who's there for you when you have been vulnerable and you've been putting yourself out there. Being an entrepreneur is so vulnerable. You've been putting yourself out there. You've been doing your best. You've been showing your work. And then when you come home, to have that person who's supporting you, who's safe, it just means everything. So cultivate that.
I think there are some vital areas that entrepreneurs neglect, which is their relationships, and then their health. You go and do this stuff and you're not working out anymore, you're not eating right, and all of these things. You have to maintain this, because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. We're trying to finish strong and leave legacies here. That's what we're talking about.
And there's another part of your your work that I want to highlight, which is that just you're working with CEOs and business owners specifically, as one of your real target audience. And one place you bring special expertise is working with these people in terms of what it means to bring your A game to home with you. And you can say
your A game looks different at home.
Yeah, very different.
So you got to know, you got to make that distinction and be clear about what your A game looks like at home and what it looks like at work. And that is what I'm so passionate about. Like how can we bring out the best in you at work and at home, and create the environment and the practices that help you to create both your business and your relationship.
Yeah. Well, let's check in and see if we have any questions. I don't know if I figured out the technology piece. So I believe you should be able to leave a comment on the live video, and then it should come up here. But I am not seeing where I can. Oh, we got a great content. That's a comment. Thanks, Robert. How do I pronounce that last name? I don't know, Robert, but I like Robert. Thank you so much. And no other things that I'm seeing. So we will just wrap it up at that, and hopefully we have the technology figured out even more as we adapt to this
I think
digital time.
I mean, kudos for this guy who put this all together at the last minute, and
we figured it out.
Yeah, well, that's why I got a 31-year-old partner. One of the many reasons. So one of the things I want to mention before we go back and kind of wrap up here is that we are, as Justin mentioned at the beginning, we are putting together resources really quickly for entrepreneurs in terms of corona-proofing your business, which is not just protecting, but also where's the opportunities here.
There's a lot of
and bringing in different resources in investment and in marketing and in distribution, all these areas. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be unleashing those very, very soon. And next month, in fact, we will have God willing, on April 18th, we will have a live event. If not, we'll do a stream again. And it's with Tom Ferguson, who is the founder of Rise Biscuits and just a phenomenal person in his own right, who is already kind of ahead of the curve. We met with him a couple of weeks ago, and he's already in his franchising business gone more to a distribution rather than people coming in. So in addition to just being a fascinating, exercise. Okay, good. I'm just filling time until the questions come. No, but anyway, that'll be a live event and something you want to attend or tune into, because it'll be part of of how some and Justin as well with his coffee shop here being able to go to a different distribution model.
Restaurant industry friends, retail friends, be sure to tune in to that live one. And our question is actually on this. So how are you planning in your business for the current change in the business environment? So this current piece in the coronavirus. And I can start on that. So my wife and I run Nolia Coffee here in Durham. And I mean, our whole business is actually built on bringing people together, right? It's congregating people. We throw all these story times and music times, and it's about bringing the community together. So that actually is right at the heart of why we built our business. So we've been trying to innovate and stay ahead of this now and say, okay, how do we stay relevant and continue to serve our community? So we've shifted now to a curbside pickup model. So you can order online on, it's Nolia to go, like the number 2, noliatogo.com, and pick it up without having to even leave your car. And you get a tiny bit of safe human interaction without actually having to come in and congregate with a bunch of humans, and then we just wash our hands before and after every single transaction. Because we still want that human connection as well. But that's one of the ways that we're trying to shift in our thinking. Okay, what are the opportunities here to serve differently? And actually, testimonial stories so far is we had one of our favorite customers, one of our regulars, put out a note to us and saying, hey, could this be available for parents with kids with disabilities all the time, so that they don't have to get out of and we didn't even,
wow.
And so what a unique way that we might actually be able to come out thriving out of this opportunity and serving even more people, because it forced us to think differently. And now we're seeing opportunities like that we just didn't think of. And so thanks to our community for even chipping in some of those ideas and keep them coming. So
yeah, and I would say as well in our Enlightrepreneur business, because our one of the fundamental things we provide is just a whole coaching service and a whole process, an assessment and process going through, and we have immediately adapted that process to what does this mean in this particular moment?
Right.
So right away, we have content, we have ideas, but because of this need and because of this opportunity, we have shifted that so that we can immediately provide value within that. What does that mean? And this whole, I mean, I think yeah, and also just the whole example of corona-proofing your business. I mean, this is, we're working with it, we're moving with it, and it gets back to what we talked, you and I talked, what we all talked to Elise about, opportunity everywhere.
What I'm going to share this vulnerability here is that it's really hard to run a business like this. We're talking about really helping these business owners through one of the most difficult times. For me as an entrepreneur, it's so hard to figure out what that line is, because you never want to be in a position where you're saying, oh, yay, you know, the world is on fire. How can I squeeze everything out of this lemon? Or how can I just exploit the situation or exploit people? And I think that's a really delicate thing. But then you say on the other side, like, but no, I can really help people. So how do I communicate the help that I can give without it? And, you know, people are going to interpret it different ways, but without it coming across as exploitative or like you're just trying to take advantage of a thing. So I just wanted to, you know, share that out there, that like, as you're trying to adapt in your business, it's okay to feel that tension, that that you still want to stay relevant and you want to adapt and adjust, but keep your heart in the right place and communicate it. And I would say vulnerability, open-heartedness is one of the keys. Like, share stuff like that. Hey, it's actually really hard to come up with a solution for people in a really troubling time, you know?
Yeah, that I totally get that. That goes back to what I was saying before a little bit. I think the question is, how do I serve? How do I serve during this
There you
time?
go.
You know, how can I offer something new that people need, that people want in this particular moment?
Yeah.
And it just reminds me of the balance between feeling for people who are suffering, feeling for my friend who had to cancel her wedding, for people who are sick, and recognizing how hard that is, while also being connected to the vision. Like, that's what I see as something that we all get to practice in this particular moment.
Yeah. I want to share a little story on that little vignette from yesterday that I think captures this, because Justin and I finished up a coaching session here, and we were just sitting out there and kind of kicking our feet up. And that one of the nice things about having a partner with a coffee shop is you get some pretty good coffee or tea here. Yeah, there we go. Branding, always, every opportunity.
Aimless. Okay, but seriously, drink coffee. We need it.
And then we were just kind of kicking back. We were talking about this, the podcast and corona-proof your business. And Justin just said so naturally, he said, I don't want to make money off other people's misfortune. You know, whatever we do, he said, we're going to make a ton of money, but we're going to do it with integrity. And that was just so authentic. And I think it's just, you know, it may be the last word for our podcast too at this time. But anyway, it's.
Well, I think you just nailed it. That line really is sticking with me, Elise, is just showing up with the how do I serve? How do I serve? You know, with what I have, with who I am, with how I show up in the world, how do I serve? And you're always going to be in a good spot if that's your true north. You know, that, I think it's beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
No, but could people also leave a comment here if they want to get in touch with Elise, or at least to get in touch with them on the YouTube page?
And we can we'll post all of Elise's contact information on our Patreon page. Well, not all of her contact information, but at least her social media handles on our Patreon page. And be sure to go and subscribe to the Patreon page. That's how we're funding the whole podcast and getting it up and running, so we can produce more of this content there. And that lives at the Enlightrepreneurs.com most days. Today we made this link, but that's where you'll see that. So go on there, connect with me on all of the social medias if you have any more stuff that you want to do at Justin Minott, M-I-N-O-T-T. Dave doesn't have social media. Did you can still use your carrier pigeon, but now it's called tweeting.
Yeah,
that's Dave's version of tweeting, is his carrier pigeon.
And I will plug, your episodes so far have been inspiring,
Oh, great.
Terrific.
Thank you.
So also, if you're in-
informational, so valuable, so good. So thank you for your work.
Thank
so
you.
I would say as well, I hope you're not here for a long time. If you are, it's an opportunity for people to really connect with you. So let's make the most out of this
Right.
with the time she's here from Zurich.
Yeah.
And also, if you want more information about the coaching and the assessment services and the other things as well, you can hit that page as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'd say for inaugural, thanks again for your flexibility. Everyone else who's listening and watching us as we go, this has been fun and seamless. And we're gonna go kick our feet up and drink some tea and coffee. So
All right.
I wish you were here with us.
I know, I do too. Next time.
Yeah, we're together in spirit. All right. Thanks, Elise. This has been wonderful.
Thank y'all.
All right. See you.
Ciao.